0. Hey everyone, I'm here with Laura as usual and the devilishly handsome Brian Reeves. Brian, Brian is a relationship coach. Brian's a relationship coach who works internationally with couples all around the world. Brian, we're really excited to have you on. How are you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. I'm Laura and Jared. I'm really glad to be here. I'm excited to do this with you. I don't know where we're going, and I love that. So
we don't either.
Yeah. Okay. That's the way we do things. We're really excited about this. Laura and I have been doing this relationship series for probably like the last 3 months. And we're on our own journeys with that in personal relationship and stuff like this. So I guess really where I'd like to take the conversation is just talking about the building process of a conscious relationship. You know, we've been talking about how our past relationships developed, what we've seen with some of our clients, whereas usually it seems like there's this tendency for couples to get together first at the sexual level, and then the energy moves up to the heart level, and then they get to the mental connection and they like hate each other and fight and the relationship falls apart. Laura and I have been playing with this idea of connecting at the mental level first. And then when you realize that there's that connection there, you have similar values, you like to do things similarly, maybe social intimacy, all the emotional intimacy, then you move down to the heart where there's that heart connection, and then you consummate with the sexual energy.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I get it. Look, there's even some Netflix shows these days sort of playing off that idea, like Love is Blind. You familiar with that show?
I haven't seen it, no.
I've heard of it, but I haven't.
Yeah, so it's this idea where it's a show. The first season, my partner and I watched it, and the couples don't see each other for a couple of weeks, I guess. I don't exactly know all the time frames, but they literally are in these cubes. They can't see each other, and they just have conversation for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, perhaps, just getting to know each other. So they have no idea what each other looks like. Love is blind. And then after a couple of weeks, well, while they're in this conversation, they're exploring, they're sort of like making a choice. Who do they want to get married to? It's like the point is to see, can they have a conversation about you? Like, you're the one I want to marry, even though I've never seen you before. It's a really fascinating show. And there's really, there's a few success stories in this show, and there's a lot of just complete flops in the show.
This is like a documentary then? It's
a reality show. I would not call it. It is not a documentary. It is a very contrived reality show.
Okay. Yeah. But is it like, that might be a ridiculous question. Is it real? A reality show being real? So like these people are actually doing this in real life, and then some of it. Yeah. Okay. That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm 46. I existed before online dating. In the old-fashioned days. I remember having a conversation. I would say I even kind of fell in love with a woman through a work that I was doing when I was maybe 29, 30. This was like 15, 16 years ago. And we didn't know what each other looked like. We just talked on the phone. It was through work. And we struck up a personal relationship. And then, we were infatuated in a way with each other, so intrigued, and we connected so deeply. And it was a really beautiful intimacy that we were sharing through it was email at the time. We didn't share pictures. We just didn't want that to get in the way. I didn't want, so. And then I flew out to meet her. I was in Miami and she was in San Diego. And I flew out to meet her. The minute she opened the door, I knew this was not going to be a romantic relationship. She wasn't unattractive.
Right.
It was just the energy of being in person. Like, I could just feel, and we had an amazing weekend. It wasn't romantic, or there was none of that chemistry whatsoever. And she, to this day, remains one of my favorite people on the planet. But we didn't have that chemistry. We had beautiful friendship chemistry. chemistry around what we care about in the world. There was a lot of sort of life compatibility in terms of how we saw the world and ourselves and what we want, the ways we wanted to grow. It's beautiful, but there was no sexual chemistry. And so, I think I hear what you're saying about people start, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to start in your groins, because those are the things that sort of fire up, kind of get us, attracted the first, the most quickly. But you still need all these different layers in order for a sustainable, thriving, healthy relationship. All of them. I mean, you can start, in the mind, in the heart, and it can evolve down to the sexual chemistry, but there's no guarantee that it will. And that might just be a friendship then that you have. And this is where a lot of relationships kind of go off the rails, is they have, Dr. Pat Allen talks about these 3 C's of relationship: chemistry, compatibility, and communication. Chemistry, compatibility, communication. If you have even just 2 out of those 3 C's, you don't have a sustainable, thriving relationship. You have something else. For example, if you have, let's go with chemistry and communication first. You got chemistry and you can communicate. Like a lot of people, especially in the first number of months, they're like, man, this is fire. And we talk about everything. We get each other. We laugh at stuff. Like, we just communicate. We care about the same things. But she lives in Italy and I live in Minnesota. And neither one of us really wants to move to another country. Or she wants kids and I don't. Or I want to live in the city, she wants to live in the country. Those are compatibility issues. Or in this day and age, she's a Trump supporter and I'm not. See, what happens is, in these cases, you've got chemistry and you got communication, but you don't have compatibility. Your lifestyles aren't compatible. And yet so many of us try to make compatible what is not compatible.
Right.
At least in the frame within which we're experiencing life in that moment. It could just be timing. I call that a lover relationship. That's what a lover is. Someone you've got chemistry and you can communicate, at least at the depth you need to. But trying to make a lover relationship into a full-blown committed relationship doesn't often go well. Make sense?
Yeah. And I love that 3rd C, because Laura and I mean, we've heard the chemistry, compatibility, but the communication piece, we haven't heard that yet. That was cool.
Yeah. Why do you think people do that? Like, why do you think that we as humans, we meet someone and we go, we've got this and we've got that. We haven't got that. I'll try and fit them into that so that I don't have to leave or they don't leave me. Is that why you think people do it? Or do they just, like, for me personally, I used to not trust that I could actually have everything that I always wanted. But then other factors, like, why do you think people do that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Well, Laura, first off, one thing that I observed a number of years ago, especially when I started doing this work professionally, was most of us are using what I call the Winget method of relationship. We're just winging it. And usually what that means is we're doing what our parents did, or we're doing in reaction to what our parents did. Like, I don't want what they have, so I'm not doing that. Kind of going to the other extreme.
Right.
Or we're just playing out the modeling that our parents gave us. And very few of us had parents who really modeled a sort of a multi-level depth of committed, healthy relationship with healthy boundaries, healthy communication, the capacity to repair arguments and conflict. And, few of us had healthy modeling in our parents. So we're just winging it. Right. And generally we live in a culture that, what's the word I want to use? We live in a culture, a cult of romance. We live in the cult of romance. Everyone thinks, well, oh my God, I feel butterflies with this person. That must mean we're meant for each other. That's ridiculous. It means you are horny for each other. Really, or this person, or yeah, some nervousness. That's just nervousness. So what?
Right.
It doesn't mean you're supposed to spend the rest of your lives together. It just means there's an attraction, and that's beautiful, but it's not the full picture.
Mm-hmm. Brian, I love what you said about the reaction, man, because I don't think I definitely haven't thought of that. I don't think too many people think of that we actually have a reaction to things in our life and we choose the exact opposite. Like I saw that in my career. Like I saw what my parents did in their careers. I'm like, I'm doing the exact opposite. But I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it until last year where I realized I was like, oh my God, I chose a way of living and doing things completely opposite of my parents. And how conscious is that really? Like
totally.
Right. Like if it's in reaction to something that I'm seeing, it's still not conscious. It may not be the same program. It may be a different program, but it still doesn't make it conscious.
It's still not an authentic expression of the yearning of your heart.
Yeah.
A lot of us, again, we look at what our parents did and we're like, I don't want that. And I had two sets of parents, step parents. And, so from the time I was 10, I had two marriages to look at and go, I don't want that.
Mm.
I wrote an article my first blog I wrote in the military. I wrote it. The blogging wasn't even a thing. This was in 1998, maybe. And it was just an email that I wrote, a 1-page essay, maybe 2 pages that I emailed to a bunch of friends. I probably wrote the first blog. I don't know. I'm going to take credit for it. I'm like the Al Gore of blogging. I invented blogging. I'm going to go with it. Right?
I like it.
Thank you. But the first sentence of that, I'll never forget it. It's so ironic given the work I do today. The first sentence was, the title was Why I Don't Believe in Marriage. And the first sentence was, I have 4 parents and between them 7 divorces. And then I wrote about, why I don't believe in marriage, essentially. I don't believe that today, but that was my modeling, and I wrote that I was probably, I don't know, 24 years old. And that, take that into relationship, so again, just winging it. But that's an example of doing it in reaction to what my parents did versus really finding my own authentic, my own true yearning and experience and going through all my developmental stages and kind of having clarity about what's going, all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's why I, the work that I do today, when I'm working with couples, I don't have an agenda. Like people should be together. You shouldn't be together. You two should be, you're not good for each other. One of the things that surprises me most is when people tell me they've worked with therapists or coaches or things before, and that those therapists had opinions or agendas about whether they should be in that relationship. You deserve better. They kind of take that stand. You should be in this relationship. He's not showing up for you. Why, or whatever. That's, I don't do that, because I think, when 2 people come together, this whole idea of conscious relationship, I don't really even think you can create conscious relationship until you're in it and then faced with the shit that arises. And then through the fire and the friction of that stuff arising, it's like that's the alchemy within which it becomes conscious. But nobody goes into a relationship that's conscious from day one. That doesn't exist. That's a fallacy. That's a myth.
Because you don't know what's going to play out. It's impossible not to.
Exactly. It's like you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Brian, I'm really interested about that. You said a phrase there, the heart's desire. So can you know your heart's desire in relationship before you get in the relationship? Or do you think you have to be in the relationship and that brings out even maybe more heart's desires that you didn't even realize? Could we go down that path a little bit?
Oh man. Yeah. It's a great path. Yeah. Good. It's a good catch because it's a poetic sentiment And again, there are layers to it. And I think there's kind of two layers I want to focus at. One is big picture. What do I yearn for in life? You know, I want a family, I want a career, I want a house in the suburbs or apartment in the city or a farm, and, you know, sort of big. What is my yearning? What do I yearn to offer? What's my gift for the world? You know, what do I want to experience? That's big picture. And then there's the moment to moment clarity of, you know, what's the most nourishing, urgent thing for me to do in the next moment? Is it to write this blog or to take a nap?
Mm-hmm.
Is it to hug my partner or go for a walk?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the moment to moment. And that requires, I mean, both really require, but especially the moment to moment really requires the capacity to feel into your own body, to be connected, to be in a way conscious, making conscious the connection to self moment by moment by moment.
Mm.
And that's what a lot of relationships, both men and women, really struggle with.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of what you were talking about with wanting to fit someone into a mold, but I have this with them and that with them, but not this piece. I've noticed couples, when they do have more of that, they can't do the piece that you're talking about. They can maybe do the future thing, but when it comes to what do I want now, moment to moment, can I be present with this person now? They can't do it because they're too busy trying to force something to go into a direction that makes them feel safe and comfortable. So do you think that they have to have all of those, sort of each end of the triangle first, to be able to be present with someone? Or do you think that's something that they learn?
Yeah, it's a great question as well. I think it's important. One thing that I love telling couples, because it's very telling, it's very revealing, their response to this when they're running into stuff. You know, at the beginning of a relationship, when things are going great, no one wants to work with a coach or a therapist.
They think they don't need it.
They don't need it. This should be, this is great. This is the best thing ever. We're just going to get along forever. Isn't this fantastic? I laugh because, you know, ignorance is so blissful. But when the stuff comes up, as it inevitably will, one of the things that I love to tell people is expect it to take 10 years before you're really good at being with each other. And that's after you start trying. You know, I've worked with couples. I've worked with couples that have been together for 40 plus years. It's honestly a little embarrassing. So I'm like, I should be learning from y'all.
Right.
I mean, I'm 5 years with my partner, you know, and I'm 46. Man, you guys are in your 60s, but they have decades of winging it.
Right.
Bad, you know, when I say bad, I just mean unskillful, unhelpful, disconnecting patterns. They've been doing it for decades, winging it, and creating an immense amount of damage and destruction along the way. Right? So you don't just turn that around overnight. And when you're new to somebody, so that's a couple that's been together for decades. When you even just know someone for a few months or a few years, I mean, my partner and I, we're together 5 years, and I think we have a really extraordinary relationship because we're willing to talk about the uncomfortable stuff regularly. We still unearth nuggets of insight about, holy shit, that's why I react that way. When you do or say this thing, we still are discovering these little insights that give us more understanding, that help us then have more compassion for ourselves and each other. We're 5 years in. And I honestly think we have one of the best relationships that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And we're still discovering, we still fight, we still hit our walls, we still have our moments of, oh my God, why are we doing, you know, all of that, the human moments of despair and agony, that why isn't this easier? You know, we experience that. But again, we lean into it. We know that it's all coming up for the wounds and the the survival stories and the old pains and all of that. It's coming up so that it can be made conscious, brought into the light, and integrated into the experience.
Laura, did you have something?
Do you think that it's easier if someone's done their sort of self-discovery to a degree before they get into a relationship? Do you think that makes the relationship easier, or does it make no difference? And what have you seen with that?
Yeah, I love your questions. They're so good. Both of you. This is fun. I laugh because they're just like so true to my experience. Like even that question, like my initial answer wants to be, yeah, totally. And I've also experienced a lot of arrogance can come with that sort of path of self-awareness. I know myself. You don't know yourself. I know how to love. You're not loving very well, right? And like all that shit can kind of get piled onto. So it's like, I want to say yes. And I've also experienced having myself done, 20 years of seemingly introspective work and spiritual seeking and practice, and then get into a relationship and do this and throw my little baby temper tantrums because I know how to love better than you do. You better hurry up and learn how to love her. It's like, so yes, I think that is true, and there is a shadow side of that also potentially.
Yeah.
And likewise, I think, there are people who've never done any of this kind of work, and there's a kindness. They just bring a kindness and a generosity, so it's like yes and no at the same time. I mean, I'll tell you this, my partner and I wouldn't be together if we both hadn't done work before getting into our relationship. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's like so important to have, I mean, at least this is the way that I would do it, would be to have a agreement that you can, I don't know a better way to say it other than have permission to lovingly kick each other in the nuts when it comes to.
I prefer to keep things above the belt, Yeah.
Maybe I could have used a better phrase for it, but like,
you got to be careful. I mean, and I want to let you finish where you're going, but at the same time, I want to really presence that, Terry Real, he's he's an author and a relationship therapist, really specializes in working with men, especially. He says this: harshness never works.
mm-hmm.
Harshness never works. And one of the things that, we men, especially, I'll often kind of frame things in heterosexual terms, and not everything applies to everybody. I want to just make sure that that's on the table. But generally speaking, male culture, we tend to need to be challenged in order to do something different, to rise to an occasion.
Definitely.
Right. So even like what you just said, lovingly kicked in the nuts, it has that flavor of, look, I'm a guy, give it to me, kick me in the nuts. I can take it. Do it lovingly, though. I don't know how you lovingly kick someone in the nuts, Jared. I gotta be honest with you. I'm not seeing that. I'm not sure that exists. So I just want to presence that, but yeah.
Yeah. I think like when I say that is like being willing to call me out when call me out, like but from a place of wanting the best for me as an individual, from a place of wanting me to grow, not to be better in the relationship or from a selfish agenda, but for the evolution of oneself, or, and like agreeing to, hey, you're kind of being an asshole right here.
I'm curious. Well, I'm curious. I'm going to check in with you, Laura. How does that sit with you? Do you want to be called out in the way that you're describing?
Well, as a woman, would I want to be called? I wouldn't want to be, if someone was going to see something in me that they thought I needed to heal and work on, they would need to suggest to me or open up a conversation with me to explore it and get me to see it for myself. Like in my experience, I have had people call me out, and I kicked and screamed. And I've also had guys say to me, "Oh, that's interesting. Why do you do that? What do you think? I think is it this? Is it because of that? Is it because I said that?" And I think, "Oh yeah." And then they say to me, "Okay, you should look at that." Like they can't fix it for me. They can say, "I'll stand with you if you want to look at it," but that's something that for you. There's nothing I can change in that. That's how you see it. So that's from a woman's perspective. I have dated men who would say the same thing, who would say, "Just tell me as it is. Just say it. Just do it." And I would, and then they wouldn't like it. And they were like, "Well, that's a bit harsh." I'm like, "Well, okay, but you know." So I totally get it. I get it totally.
Yeah. One thing to one of the maps that I like using, again, all kinds of relationships, is the masculine feminine map, which does not mean man woman, but the masculine feminine map. And all I want to say about it in this context is the feminine in a relationship, the flow of love between us, she, and I don't mean the woman, but that the feminine essence of relationship rises through praise. She wilts in the face of challenge. So if you want your partner to be more masculine, challenge them. Respectfully, lovingly, like you said, kick them in the balls lovingly. Man or woman, if you want to bring the masculine out of your partner. I remember a couple months ago, Sylvie and I, we live on this sort of in the hills in Los Angeles. And so we have a daily walk with our dog up a pretty steep hill. And I remember a couple months ago, I only did this once because, I don't need to make mistakes too many times anymore. But I did this thing where it's like, okay, we're walking up this hill. Let's race. I'll race you to that car. Chow. She looked at me like I was an idiot. I don't want to race, man. What's the problem? What's wrong? Like, you shouldn't say these words, but it's sort of like, can we just connect and just be with each other? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Let's race. Let's challenge each other. Let's rise, And then again, it was one of those moments where, again, she's wanting to connect. That's the feminine aspect of relationship, connection. So if you want to feel connected with your partner, then praise is the way through that. Focusing on what you are appreciating, what you're grateful for, what you enjoy, what you value in your partner. Focusing there. And that, like I think, Laura, what I'm hearing in what you even shared is, coming at you head on with a challenge. Even for a lot of guys, that doesn't really work. Not in intimacy. Maybe at the office. And even then, it still has to be done in a, it doesn't have to be, and it often isn't, but it's better if it is done in a thoughtful, respecting, even loving way.
I think it's the extreme, like with what Jared's saying, like with the maybe there's different one extreme and a different extreme. I guess, like for me, yes, it needs to be a bit more soothing. I believe the woman is the receptive energy. The more love you put in to her, she gives more love back. It's like this cycle. She's like the receptive love. But I know that there's been times where I have had someone lovingly kick me. I don't have, but where it hurts. And actually it kind of shook me so much that I changed.
Sure.
So I think that didn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's like that shock to the system, like Tony Robbins talks about it. I think he does, like shocks to the system to shift the energy of the person.
Well, I think you could look at it like this. If you want something, if I was working with a couple this morning, I was sharing with you all, and one of their challenges was a heterosexual couple. And I see this challenge a lot, by the way. This is not uncommon. They've been together 3 years-ish. She wants to move the relationship forward, commitment, moving in together. So he's sort of in this place where he doesn't want to move forward, but he doesn't want to lose her either. They're stuck. And they've been here for a couple years. And what's sort of tragic about this, I don't know, well, I'll just frame it like this. They've been doing relationship in his comfort zone on his terms,
Okay.
not hers.
Mm.
Right? Because if she was really honest with herself and really standing for what is important to her, she would have ended the relationship years ago.
Mm.
Whereas for him, it kind of works. He's really comfortable in his discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's fascinating as I'm working with them and I'm sort of, again, I don't take sides. I don't say what you should or shouldn't do, but I take positions at times just so they can try it on to see what it feels like and see if it rings true for them. Or I'll sort of go through different scenarios with the ways things can play out different. If you do this practice, this may happen. I like to do a lot of experiments and sort of different, little shifts in behavior and little tools and things to do, just see what happens. We never know. And, interestingly enough, and again, I see this all the time in these scenarios, she's the one that really makes the relationship continue.
Mm.
And what's that, Jared?
Instead of asking him to step up and step out.
Well, allowing. Right. No, instead of allowing him to step into that space of claiming the relationship or realizing he's not going to. So I'm not, if he's not, I'm not.
Oh, so Brian, what I'm hearing here is that they're in a gridlock. Mm-hmm. How do you help someone? Can we just talk about like what causes gridlock and then how to get out of that?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a lot of forms of gridlock, as you say, in relationship. I call them kind of death spirals.
Yeah.
I call them death spirals because, Laura, like you pointed out, when you are filled with love by your partner, just more love wants to come out. That's a spiral up into heaven in a way. Death spirals are where sort of two people are in their defensive stance. And I often see in a relationship dynamic, for example, one partner is more values connection more. Mm-hmm. Jared, you're disappearing into the matrix.
Sorry, the sun is setting in my window, so it's changing.
I'm losing you to Tron. Come back to us.
I'm sorry. The sun is setting, so I'm like having to mess with my lighting. I apologize.
Come back from the light, Jared.
I'm totally here.
So one partner tends to be more a stand for connection. The connection between us. They want to talk about the relationship more. They're more concerned about how are we feeling together? Are we doing the things that really serve the relationship? How are we, tends to be more. And the other partner tends to be more concerned with sort of the value of freedom. Do we have the resources we need? Do we have the money we need? Do we have the house we need? Are we doing the work that we're supposed to? Are we on our mission? Are we independent enough? Are we getting too enmeshed? Are we, wait, are you taking care of yourself or do I have to take care of you? Because I don't want to take care of you. So that's one of the spirals that can play out because, for example, the more connection-oriented partner, when if the sort of concern that we're losing connection arises and he or she can kind of put out their claws and go, whoa, get back over here. Where'd you go? And then the more freedom-oriented partner is like, whoa, get your claws off of me. They tend to back up. And then the more connection partner goes, wait, where you run? And they dig in even more. Mm-hmm. And, and there's a spiral, right and down into crazy town.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
What's that, Laura?
I said I've done that a lot in the past.
No, you've done that, yeah.
Because I can feel the energy of the guy leaving. I go, whoa, what happened? You try and pull them back. Only recently have I learned not to do that. And
yeah.
Because men's energy kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah.
But as a woman, it sometimes feels like a disadvantage because we feel everything. Well, I can't speak for all women. I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
I feel everything. And that's not easy. That means that a guy can't go through anything without me knowing what it is. So
Well, if I may, I feel you, and just, biologically, yes, your body through oxytocin, through estrogen, your body is viscerally affected by what's happening in the environment in a way that most male bodies are not. Testosterone suppresses oxytocin and estrogen. It's very focusing. So in testosterone, that's that mission oriented. We literally can't feel so much that's going on around us. The danger in that, Laura, is that yes, you're feeling something, but what a lot of, and men too, I mean, we can cultivate that sensitivity too. The danger in it is we turn it into a story. You feel it, yeah, okay, something's happening. Well, what do you do with that? Because a lot of times it comes out, again, unskillfully, it can come out like, oh, you're going to leave me, or you don't care about me, or you don't want the same things I want, or, and then, now again, here we are. Then on the other side, that's received because let's just say he's not sensitive to what's really going on. Maybe he has pulled away. He's focusing on work, or he's just going through something. We all go through shit, just having a moment. But now he's in his defense. What do you mean? I don't care about you. I didn't go anywhere. What's, and then again, another spiral into crazy town.
So it sounds like, Brian, the key there is to, no matter what you're experiencing in your body, to just look at the story that your mind's created and really have the awareness to question the story. And like, I see this with my clients sometimes, like I'll see, or just even in relationship, like I'll be like, I can see a person's mind making me the devil, or I can see them making me the savior. And I'm like, what character am I going to play today? Like sometimes I'll say that, I'll be like, literally, what character am I going to play today? So, I mean, would you say in your relationship work with clients, is that something that you really point out to them? Like, hey, what story is your mind making up about what you're feeling? And is that really true?
Absolutely. And though we don't bypass the feelings.
So we have to honor the feelings.
Absolutely. Yeah. The feelings are there to teach us something. They're there to show us something. Something is happening. I mean, that's what feelings reveal. Something's happening. Yeah, I remember, I used to manage conscious music artists. I was managing this band, and we were on tour for 10 months all over North America. And I was a manager. So I'm busy. I got, we're on tour all over the country. I'm arranging lodging. I'm arranging, all the promotion for our concerts. I mean, we were 10 months on the road. I remember I was sitting in the truck, and I had my laptop down, my laptop's on my lap in this truck, and I'm bad posture, and I'm doing this. And I remember I started to feel a lot of pain. It probably for weeks, I felt this searing pain that went from my neck down to my shoulder. But, I got shit to do. I'm busy. I can't pay attention to that. I got stuff to do, and I'll do this a little bit, and I'll stretch it out, get out of the van and do this a little bit, but then it's back to work. Well, about 2 months, maybe 3 months after just ignoring that, one morning, somewhere between Salt Lake City and Portland, in a hotel somewhere, I could not get out of bed. I was 36 years old, and my back locked up on me like a corpse. It terrified me. I was like, do I have spinal meningitis? Like, what is happening right now? One of my bandmates had to pull me out of bed because I was 36 years old in good health, and I couldn't get out of bed because I ignored what was happening in my body. Right? And I was living in a story. I got work to do. That's nothing. That'll go away. Or I'll just live with it. Yeah. And so, the story, it's not that the story doesn't matter. It's really about, living I believe kind of living our full selves means bringing all of our wisdom to the table, the wisdom that the body has to offer, what the feelings are, the wisdom of the stories. And yes, definitely, I do a lot of work around getting clear around survival beliefs, which are all fear-based, scarcity-based. I don't want to die. So I'm going to hold on to this belief. It's like the guy who fears rejection. and living in the fear of rejection, he won't ask out the one he wants to date because he's too afraid of rejection. He rejects himself before he ever even gives his potential beloved an opportunity to say no or yes. Right. So yeah, those thoughts matter. Absolutely. But we don't bypass the body.
Mm-hmm.
There's either some things arising that needs to be tended to and cared for. And that's where connection happens also. Connection happens in the feeling experience. Two people in a room feeling each other's presence.
Yeah, beautiful. So it's like what creates the deeper connection is being present with what's happening in the body, being present with the thought. I think I'm disappearing again. I'm being present with the mind's thoughts and stories, and allowing all of that to come into play in the relationship as well. And like talking about it and going through it.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because it's funny as you're disappearing. It's like this is masculine spiritual practice, is to disappear. I don't exist. I'm not real. All perspective, we're all one. And so we sort of float in this sort of nothingness of no being. And I'm just, meditating and I have no identity. That's masculine spiritual practice is that. It's beautiful. But feminine spiritual practice is being all of it, feeling it, being in the fire, being in the. It's like I love like Laura. She's coming through clear, man. She's got all the. She's just present, man. She's here. It's just it's just a funny, fun kind of visual representation of sort of masculine and feminine practice. And in one body, masculine and feminine practice looks like having awareness, yes, of the thoughts, the stories. What's happening in the scene around me, and also feeling what's happening in the body, bringing that wisdom, allowing that wisdom to be present, allowing all of that to be in the conversation, in the space, as well as what my partner is going through and feeling and experiencing.
Yeah, beautiful.
Sorry, Laura, go ahead, please.
If we think about your shoulder as an example, let's say that was something like, okay, I'm ignoring it. I always think that the benefit, if a man will allow it to be, is that the woman will see that from the first hour it happens, which is, hey, your shoulder's getting bad. You need to sit upright. Let me rub it. Let me get a masseuse. Let me get you a better chair. Now, from what I've seen both sides, so I've seen a guy be like, no, I'm working, I'm focused. Right. And I've seen other guys go, oh yeah, sure, you can just rub it. Oh yeah, thank you, I'm really grateful, I feel better.
Yeah.
So what would you say to guys or just relationships, because that is the benefit of women. I love and respect both men and both women for what they can do. They're both very different. They both complement each other so significantly. It's beautiful to see that. But people resist the flow of that, of how the men can be together, or the masculine and the feminine. So is that an ego thing? Is that no, I just need to focus?
Yeah.
Or is that I don't like that you know me more than I do, so can we just not go there?
Yeah. One of the important skills in relationship is receiving, learning to receive. But another important skill in relationship is learning how to give. And you don't give when someone is not open to receive. Pushing giving into a space where receiving is not welcome, it's not very skillful. Right? But likewise, staying closed off to receiving because I got me, I'm on, I'm on point, I'm on mission, I got me. And well, that's not very helpful either. Right? That crushes intimacy. So I think we all, men and women, especially in this world we live in, where we're very masculine oriented, doing, outcome, productivity, and very egocentric productivity. It's all about my comfort, my needs, and by comfort and needs, I mean, what do I want to see happen? Not even what do I really need deep in my being, but what do I think the world needs? And what do I think I need from the world? I'm on it. You know, I think one of the things that I as I look into the world and I see, especially doing intimate relationship work and working with couples, and like just look at the purpose of intimate relationship has changed profoundly in just the last, few decades. Intimate relationship used to be purely an economic thing, done for economic purposes, really. It wasn't a love. It wasn't designed for love. That's for the mistress. That's what you do with the lover. You love them, but you don't marry your lover, historically speaking. Today, that's not at all. Today, you marry your lover. Right? But what that requires is a capacity to be emotionally engaging and engaged, and vulnerability. It requires intimacy. It requires the ability to receive as well as to give into someone's receiving. And these are skills, again, that we're neither taught nor modeled, generally speaking.
Brian, that brings me, do you have time for one more question, and then we can take questions from the audience? Are you cool with that?
Yep.
It brings me to this. You made a comment earlier about masculine and feminine energies. And one of the things that I teach, not only in business with sales, and now it's just a part of my being and who I am, is when to use masculine energy and when to use feminine energy, like when to give, when to receive, and actually making that a conscious process and really seeing where someone's at.
Yeah.
Can you, and you mentioned earlier about, the feminine, if you want to bring more of the love out of your lover, then you give them more love, and naturally that's what gets reflected back to you. What's your thoughts or opinion or your experience with consciously pushing out either masculine energy or feminine energy based off of what you want to see happen? Now, I know overall that's a real masculine perspective because you're trying to control the external reflection. What do you think about that, though? And have you seen that? Like, can you use that in relationship, for instance, when you're working with some of your clients?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some people like to experiment with this, what do they call it? Dominator, submissive, where they want to always be dominant, always be submissive. Some people like that. That's a total outlier of an experience. Nobody is supposed to be all masculine or all feminine all the time.
Right.
And there are certain domains and we're speaking relationship. There are certain domains where that has nothing to do with anything. Maybe in the bedroom, for example, you might really enjoy being the partner who does the taking, who does by taking, I mean the ravishing, the penetrating energy, that's a more masculine form of sexual expression. You might be the partner who really loves being taken, being opened, energetically, all that. That's a more feminine expression, but that probably doesn't hold in the kitchen when you got to clean up the dishes. Who gives a damn about who's more masculine or feminine? It has nothing to do with it. So I think, and this is again part of learning the time it takes to learn to be with somebody. So what I mean, you don't enter a relationship conscious. I mean, there's so many things to discover that must be made conscious over the course of being with someone. And one of the, as I'm working with couples, one of the things that I'm constantly warning, especially men, but women too, as we're working with different practices and tools and techniques and skills and kinds of things, one of the things I'll often say something like this is, okay, so when she gets angry, you're going to do this listening practice. You're going to do a practice. The way that you breathe, the way that you hold your body, the language you use. But be careful. Don't do this because you think it's going to work. The moment you're doing this because you need it to work, you're fucked. In other words, yeah, see, Laura gets it immediately.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing it a little bit, but I'm
like,
still very perplexed.
Laura's like, yeah.
I think of the movie like, well, I'll just let you finish. Yeah, I'll just let you.
So, well, I'm curious, Laura, what spoke to you about that?
Because I can feel, I never tend to tell, if a guy says to me, what do you need from me? I'm very loose. I don't really give anyone any instructions how to be with me, because they're following guidelines of how to be with me. It's the same with anything to do with like a sexual connection. Anyone that tries to be intimate with me and follow a pattern of I got to do this to her, then do that to her, I'm like,
right.
Oh, I can't do this. So with the guy, if he's listening because he thinks that that's what he needs to do to make everything calm, I can feel that, and he's not listening, then he's not actually listening. He's acting like he's listening. We can feel the difference.
That's a great way of putting it. There's trying to listen, and then there's just listening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's listening as a means to get what you want out of this situation, and then there's just listening.
Yeah.
Those are two very different experiences of listening. So that's why I say, you know, your question, Jared, about offering masculine or offering feminine, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the terms, and they can be helpful. I mean, you know, it's nice the first time you walk a terrain, it's nice to have a map, you know, so I kind of know where I'm going. But the more you get to know the terrain, the more you realize this map has flaws.
Yeah, and it'll actually keep you from knowing the terrain itself.
Exactly. You're in the map and you're not in the actual terrain.
Right.
And that's where the real mastery of relationship is. Okay, the map is great to practice, like practicing scales on a guitar, but that's not music. Those are just scales on a guitar. They're skills. You're learning a skill. But if you want to make music, you throw the scale away as you practice and gets proficient. And now it's just like, whoa, you know, I mean, I saw Prince a couple times in concert, and like, I look at him, like, talk about mastery of an instrument. It's like he and the instrument are one. When you're doing relationship well with your partner, it's not that you know it's going to work with them. It's that as you're dancing, you feel each other, you feel what the moment is asking for. Not even like what Laura, what you said, if you tell a guy what you need and he does it exactly as you need it, it probably, look, some guys will still nail it because they'll really feel it. They'll get it and they'll be like, okay, I get it, I'm in. But a lot of guys will be like, man, I hope this works. Let me try the thing. And then Laura, if you don't respond exactly the way he thinks you should, now he's pissed and frustrated. But you said.
Right.
Right?
I'm thinking of this, I can't remember what movie it is, but it's like the girl says to the guy's like, no, I want you to want to do the dishes. And the guy's like, why would I want to do the dishes? I did the dishes like you said. And it's kind of like that.
I think it's the Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
the breakup movie.
Yeah, the breakup movie.
That's what it is. Yeah,
I love that clip because it so shows. It's like, no, if you really were paying attention to me, you would have already done the dishes, and I wouldn't have had to ask you. And now I'm pissed because I asked you, and even though you did the dishes, I'm still pissed.
Yeah.
And the irony about that is I get it. Who wants to do the damn dishes?
Right.
But when you cross that threshold of really caring about your partner, you still might not want to do the dishes, but you know that doing the dishes, it helps them relax.
Yeah.
It helps them feel cared for.
Yeah.
So you do the damn dishes. Maybe you don't love it. Maybe in your mind you still think, I don't want to do this, but it matters to my partner that I show up in this way. So I'm going to lean into my discomfort and do the damn dishes.
Yeah. You love them being relaxed so much. So
I know it matters to them, that how I show up matters. I mean, this is relationship done well is a paradox in the sense that I'm not responsible for my partner's happiness. That's her job. And how I show up absolutely has an impact on her.
Mm-hmm.
there's such a really amazing line that I've seen in between that. People bypass it. They use that as an excuse to treat someone badly. They go, it's not my job to make you happy. Yeah, but it's also not your job to yell at me, disrespect me,
Right.
don't show me love, attention, all that kind of stuff, right? So I've seen that in couples before where they're like, Jared and I call it spiritual bypassing, where they're using spirituality as an excuse to not have to step into any action and doing anything. And I've seen couples kind of tear each other down in a way and then be like, but he's got to make himself happy. That's not my responsibility. I'm like, yeah, but you're also not making it any easier for him to find a way to make himself happy because you treat him like shit. Because you haven't, so there's such a fine line.
Oh, we can use these spiritual concepts to just beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Then it's not even spiritual to me. It's false spirituality. It's rubbish.
It's getting the concept, but not it's having the knowledge, but not really integrating it as wisdom.
Yeah, embodying it in the body and in practice and in true experience.
Yeah, they say it, but they haven't integrated it. So
because
right?
Well, the irony is the only reason I'm getting frustrated that you're making me responsible for your happiness is that right now I'm making you responsible for my happiness. If you would just stop making me responsible for your happiness, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
It's such a mind fuck, it's such a, we're some crazy people. We're some crazy people. It's like, but it becomes a comedy. We really see just how ridiculous we are. My partner and I, man, we laugh so much at our own silliness because we do all these things. She's a marriage and family therapist. I'm a relationship coach. You should hear our ridiculous conversations sometimes. But, we just thankfully, rather than devolving into, we're both passionate hotheads, and couples tend to be, they either shut down around conflict or they explode around it. We're exploders. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we explode more into laughter because of just how ridiculous we see ourselves being.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's so important to take yourself not seriously, especially in those heated moments where everything's coming forward. And then I think John Gottman calls them like repair attempts. Like when you see the ridiculousness of the argument and the conflict, then the most successful relationships have those just repair attempts where they just realize it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Brian, thanks so much for doing this. Are you cool with going to some questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've got some time. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, man. So I'm going to go to Corinne's question here. Corinne says, with the past ways we are aware relationships have been, what do you believe is the main transition required for divine/love relationships?
With the past ways, what do you believe is the main transitions required? I feel very grateful in a way to be alive at this time because I really see, thanks, I think largely to the internet, it has its shadow side for sure, but we're able to, I think we are on the leading edge of changing the paradigm of how we do intimacy. What we're attempting to do in our little two-person villages, villages held together by this sort of cult of romance is unprecedented in all of human history. This has never been done before. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I like to argue for, if you will, is compassion for ourselves. How could this be easy? None of our ancestors got this right.
Right.
What makes us think we're supposed to just nail it right out the gate? Right? Yeah. We're truly on the leading edge of addressing and healing the wounds and ignorances of our fathers and mothers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
My clients, when they are working on shadow energy and they're trying to let something go that's been with them their whole life, and they say, Laura, I don't want this anymore. I'm trying to push it away. And the first thing I say to them is, hang on a second, you've got to go into compassion for yourself. Do you understand why you do that? And can you understand how that was created? Can you understand what you've been through to feel that way? And when they start, like we had a girl a couple of weeks ago, she stopped crying when I said that because she got it. And then it starts to transform on its own. But people push this stuff away and they're pushing away part of their own self, and that's separating their own being. Like, you have to integrate your own being.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's allowing for the mess, allowing for the messiness, embracing the messiness. This is one of the insidious aspects of the self-help movement, the positive psychology movement, is let's get out of the mess as quickly as possible. But that's the masculine way. Let's get to the outcome. Let's get to utopia. Let's get to achieving all of our goals as quickly as possible. It's not that that's wrong, and I don't even use those words. I banish the words right and wrong from my practice. But it's only half of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's just half of the conversation. Because I have ambition. I have things I want to experience and attain and achieve and all of that, but not at the cost of my humanity, not at the cost of connection with my partner, of the health, vitality of our relationship. And so I think, Corinne, I think, what do I believe is the main transitions required? I think this is probably one of the first things, is really being willing to be uncomfortable. I look at what my parents have been through. I think a big reason I wouldn't want their marriages, and they're relatively happy in them, I suppose. I mean, works for their generation, I guess. Again, look at all the excuses I'm making for them. All I know is I wouldn't want that. And I think a big reason why is our parents collectively, they generally don't want to talk about the uncomfortable things.
Right.
They don't want to go there.
Yeah. And, I think there's this understanding of divine love relationships being perfect and, care, like free of any true messiness. But like, that's
the masculine vision. That's the masculine vision of divine relationship.
Right. But the feminine is embracing the chaos, embracing I don't know what the fuck I'm doing over here, and I need your help. And can we go through and be in this together? And we don't really have a cultural narrative or a cultural story, or, big media doesn't really kind of show that, really. I mean, so it really is an interesting time where, with the internet only coming online within the last 30 years, there's whole new paradigms and ways of relating that it's like we really are exploring unexplored territory right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. I'm going to go to Brian's question and then we'll close up here. So Brian says, thank you for all doing this chat. As an awakened person, I find myself disappointed by so many people because they're afraid to communicate. How do we let go of disappointments and expectations? Oh, I love that as a coach. That's a great question.
Yeah. As an awakened person.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah.
So, how do we let go of disappointments and expectations? Well, I think this is part of what we're pointing at too, is my first question might be, well, perhaps before letting go of them, how could you perhaps be with them more? Be with the disappointments, be with the fact that you have expectations. I'm not validating that your expectations are appropriate. We're human. We expect things. We have expectations. We have desires. We have longings. There's a feast of longing and hunger in our bodies and minds and hearts for, one of the things I often tell couples is your problems are not caused by your differences between you. Your problems are caused by you constantly trying to resolve the differences between you.
Can you say that one more time, Brian? That was good.
Your problems are not just that you have differences, right? Your problems aren't caused just by your differences. Your problems are caused by constantly trying to resolve the differences. So these disappointments and expectations, I mean, Brian, speaking to that, asked that question, I would really just encourage you to examine notice one thing that doesn't serve relationships is what I call pedestaling. And what happens when we do pedestaling, which is like, I have all of these expectations and hopes and I'm up here and I want someone to meet me up here, is Well, usually only one person gets to be on a pedestal at a time. And what'll often happen is, it becomes this, the shame spiral when you don't live up to your own expectations, which if you're human, you're not gonna. That's the shadow side of us all. We disappoint ourselves. No human perfectly lives up to their own expectations. They may project out their disappointment and put it on everybody else because they don't want to face it. But, just notice the pedestaling in the framing of your question, Brian. And that's a really painful world to live in.
Yeah.
And it doesn't serve intimacy at all.
I've noticed people do that within themselves and in relationships, and I understand it and I have compassion for it because I used to do it a lot. But
Totally. Yeah.
it's people always, when they start really self-examining and doing a bit of healing work, I have clients that come to me and go, I want to do more, I want to do more, I want to do more. There's this about me, that, and I'm like, stop looking for problems within yourself. You've done enough. Like, you've done stuff that was really burdening you and destroying your life. You've healed those things. Like, you feel good about them. Stop looking for things that are wrong with you and go out and enjoy your life. It's time. And it's the same with relationships. Don't keep looking for, well, I've had problems with communicators, or I've had problems with commitment, I've had problems with rejection in the past. Just go out and enjoy the person and enjoy it unfolding and let it. I always think the best relationships kind of take over from ourselves. In my experience, the best relationships I've had have developed on their own. I don't need to do anything. Show up, they build, and they become like their own energy. And it's beautiful to be in it and enjoy it. But so many people were looking for things that are wrong, and we're trying to sabotage it to a degree. And then if we look for something, we always find it every time. That's it. So if we look for communication, no commitment, whatever, if you keep looking for it, you will find it. You will find people that can't communicate, or you will find people that can't commit, because it's in your energy.
Yeah, nobody's going to communicate exactly the way you want them to all the time, or understand you exactly the way you want to be understood all the time, or even most of the time. One thing I want to offer Brian too is consider the possibility of using the word awakening man rather than awakened, which has such a finality about it. It's like there's no room to grow when you're awakened. So just consider the possibility, awakening. Try that on, see how it feels.
I love that. I have a mic here, and I would drop it if it wasn't worth $200.
Yeah, don't drop that mic.
Brian, thanks so much for taking the time to coming on here, man. We really appreciated it. We love your energy. We love what you're about. Can you just share with everyone what you're doing, where people can find you, if you got any programs or work coming up?
Yeah, definitely. So, this is, this is what I do. I coach predominantly around relationships, men, women, couples. But me and my partner, Sylvie, she and I, we have a number of different programs. You can find my website. You see how it's spelled with a Y, Brian Reeves, just brianreeves.com. We have we have programs that teach you about healthy boundaries, about how to create connection in the midst of conflict, all that stuff. So, but you guys, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this. Your questions were great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed it too, Brian. Thank you. And guys, if you want to check out any of his programs, him and Sylvie's programs, just check out the link below. It's right there in the description box. Thanks again, Brian. We really appreciate you, my man.
Yep. Good to see you both.
Beautiful. Guys, that's all we got for this time. If you haven't yet, sign up for the Sacred Relationship series. We got about 2 more weeks left, and that'll be all. We'll be going live again next week. We'll see you all